Ladies and gentlemen, this is C. Paul Singh, President Nisbat International at this end. A very good evening, and thank you all for joining us. I extend a very hearty welcome to all our delegates and to our eminent speaker of the evening. Nisbat has so far conducted about 136 webinars, interactive sessions, and now we have launched for the last few weeks the YouTube panel discussion also. Your response to our webinars, our interactive session has been overwhelming, and that is how we also had the encouragement to start now panel discussion. Today's interactive session is on crisis in Pakistan, Afghan relations, and escalation in terrorism. This session is being addressed by a very eminent speaker, a well-renowned world authority on terrorism, Dr. Ajay Sahni. Let me introduce Nisbat. Nisbat was started in 1990. It started training courses in the field of private security, safety, security management, and technology. Now Nisbat has become a think tank, and we have about 90 scholars who are providing inputs to us from time to time in the field of security, safety, and other topical subjects. Nisbat has now established 4 wings, and we are now on the first wing, that is Nisbat Forum. Let me introduce the moderator of today, Major General Deepak Mehta, who was commissioned in Rajputana Rifle in 1972. He is a 3rd generation officer in the Army, postgraduate in Defense Studies from Madras University. He has attended advanced management programs at the Management Development Institute at Gurgaon also. He has seen active operations in J&K, both in counterinsurgency and along the line of control. Commanded an infantry battalion in J&K during the height of the insurgency phase and was also wounded. He commanded an infantry brigade during Ops Parakrama and mounted div subsequently. He raised the first information warfare cell of the Army as a pilot project. Has instructional appointment also and staff appointment. Major General Deepak shall moderate this session. Let me say a few words to introduce the subject. Crisis in Pakistan, Afghan relation, and escalation in terrorism. It is rightly said that in politics, there are no permanent friends and enemies, and there are only permanent interests. At one time, Pakistan was very, very jubilant about the removal of Ashraf Ali government in Kabul and the withdrawal of US troops from Afghanistan. Today, the position is different. Initially, Taliban were considered to be a valuable strategic asset for Pakistan security and for anti-Indian policies. Now the regional Taliban seem to be drifting out of Pakistan, and even they are somewhat going out of umbrella of Afghanistan also. Pakistan security forces are facing direct attacks from the TTP. It seems these Taliban terrorists have safe havens in Afghanistan, though Pakistan has been making efforts in the past to smooth over the growing rift between Islamabad and Kabul, yet it has not succeeded. The frequency of clashes has been going up in Pakistan, even with so-called pro-Pakistan regime in Kabul, as they call it. They initially call it as a pro-Pakistan regime when the Kabul was taken over by the Afghan Taliban. The issue between the two countries is not possible to get resolved easily. The shaky relations with neighboring Afghanistan have made this situation all the more worse for Pakistan. Our speaker, Dr. Ajay Sahni, as I told you, is one of the well-known authority on terrorism, will address this session and will go into further details about the crisis, Afghan relations, and escalation in terrorism. Thank you very much. With these words, I pass on the session to the moderator of today, General Deepak Mehta. General Deepak Mehta, please.
Thank you, sir. Before I introduce the president and this eminent speaker, just want to make a few points with regards to this interactive session. We have people viewing this interactive session from the UAE, Kenya, Zambia, Bangladesh, and a large number from India. This interactive session is sponsored by the Premier Consultancy and Investigation, which is a leader in the field of risk management and advisory enterprise. It's also sponsored by Premier Shield Private Limited. I want to make it a point here is that this NISMAT gives a platform to the sponsors if they want to. You can get onto the NISMAT website and you can put in your bid for whatever you want to sponsor. And now coming down, a few words on the president. Mr. Sipal Singh is the president of NISMAT. He joined the Central Police Service in 1962. He underwent the initial training at the Central Police Training College at Mount Abu in Rajasthan in India. He was also alumni of the prestigious National Police Academy at Hyderabad, where he completed advanced police training. He served in a number of senior appointments in a number of states in India. He was picked up and made responsible to raise a new police force, that's a rapid action force, to deal with the communal riots, and he was the first boss of this organization. In recognition of his outstanding performance during his service, he was decorated with the President's Police Medal for Distinguished Service, Indian Police Medal for Meritorious Service, Special Police Duty Medal with bar, that is, he got it twice. He got a Sena Medal, which is an Army Award, and a number of other commendations, and rewards. After retirement, he was conferred with the prestigious award, the Security Personality of the Year, by the President of India in the Global Security Conference. Presently, his advisor, Asian Professional Security Association, that's India chapter, Honorary Director General, Central Association of the Private Security Industry. And he is also an association of the Private Detective and Investigations India. Coming down to the eminent speaker that we have, the president has introduced him in certain words, but few more. He is the executive director of the Institute of Conflict Management. He's a publisher and editor of the South Asian Intelligence Review and a project director of Impact. He served as a member of the Madhukar Gupta Committee for restructuring of the Ministry of Home Affairs. Presently, he's a member of the Police Modernization and Strengthening Committee of the state of Uttar Pradesh. He's researched and written extensively on aspects related to the conflict, politics, and development in South Asia, has participated in the advisory projects undertaken by the various national and state governments. He has jointly edited with Mr. KPS Gill on the aspect related to terror and containment perspectives of the Indian internal security, global threats on terror to include ideological, material, and political linkages. He has lectured at numerous professional institutes, appears frequently on the aspect of terrorism and insurgency in the electronic and print media. Dr. Ajay Sahni, on to us, please.
Thank you, General Mehta. Thank you, Mr. Singh. The topic, in some senses, is so familiar because we hear of it almost every day. And I think it is important for us to begin to focus on some elements of nuance to see where this trajectory is actually going. What is the contestation and what is the scale of contestation? And who are the winners and losers? It is very obvious that Pakistan's so-called strategic depth strategy has not quite turned out as they had hoped for, as they had expected. But I think something even more basic, both countries are afflicted with relatively high levels of violence even today. But this needs to be put into context. Take, for instance, Afghanistan. In 2021, which is the year in which Taliban on August 15 takes over Kabul, but the preceding year is a year of continuously escalating violence. You had 27,752 fatalities in the country. In 2022, you had 2,942 fatalities in total in insurgency and terrorism-related violence. This is very important. It is important because when you read the news, you will constantly have this strident commentary on Afghanistan of how many people are being killed, daily incidents of violence, atrocities, what they do against women, what they do against civilians, what they have been doing against members of the previous regime who have been targeted, and so many of them have been killed, tortured, killed, otherwise targeted. But you must understand that we have come from a situation where 15 to 30,000 people were being killed in a year. And we are now at a situation where you have about under 3,000 people dying in 2022. This is a group, the Taliban. When I say 27,752 people killed, more than 21 of these were in the terrorist category, overwhelmingly from the Taliban, drawn from the Taliban. Some of them were from the Islamic State as well, and some other smaller groupings. But this is a group that can absorb tremendous violence. It accepts tremendous violence. People say the Taliban will come under a great deal of pressure because of the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, and the humanitarian crisis is grave. But this, again, is a group that does not concern itself with anybody's welfare. Their eyes are on the next life. Their eyes are on the hard and their interpretation of the written word of the faith. So they have the capacity to endure tremendous and continuous violence and deprivation over a very long time to come. Pakistan, on the other hand, is a settled state. Whatever our assessment of the quality of governance, etc., it is a settled state. It has continued and persisted with its internal difficulties and turmoils for decades at end. But it is a state that appears to be continuously weakening. Now, here again, we have to put a balance on things. For instance, if you look at the medium term, the last roughly 5 odd years, we see from 2019 onwards a continuous decline in violence till 2022. So what you had, a continuous increase in violence till the present. So in 2019, you just had 365 fatalities, goes up to 506, goes up to 663. Last year, there were 971 fatalities. And they have already had, till the end of February, over 277 fatalities in this year. However, before we start, and there is this tendency, Pakistan is going to disintegrate. Pakistan is at a cusp. Pakistan, in certain perceptions, has been disintegrating for the last from its very creation. So, for those who are getting their hopes up in terms of the suffering in Pakistan, I would suggest a certain moderation, because if we go back to 2009. 11,317 people were killed in terrorism and insurgent violence. And Pakistan survived. So there is something. Yes, there is a progressive, in a sense, weakening, some very dramatic, and this is something that always in our assessments, we have this proclivity. Wherever it is, a major incident occurs in Kashmir, we are back into, the 1990s. Something happens in Punjab, oh, we are back into the Khalistan era. And so we also interpret major incidents. You had a terrible incident last year in that mosque, where last month in January, where 84 policemen were killed, mostly policemen were killed in a mosque. And immediately there was this sense that the security forces will collapse, that there is a disintegration. I don't think any of this is going to happen. There is going to be a progressive challenge, and this will be overlaid by the other challenges Pakistan is facing, which I will come to. But it is important when we look at these trends of escalating violence in Pakistan to understand how and when they started. If you go back to the data, you will see that the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan activities within Pakistan begin to escalate immediately after the Doha Agreement, February 2020. Now, how does this happen? Why is it connected? It is connected simply because both the Taliban and its ideological twin, the TTP, who had also been supporting it and fighting shoulder to shoulder in Afghanistan with them, begins to see a victory in Afghanistan more or less imminent, despite the terms of the agreement which said that America will withdraw if the Taliban, Afghan Taliban, adheres to a whole series of terms and conditions. None of those terms and conditions were in fact adhered to, and America still withdrew. So you can understand the degree of confidence that has come into the Taliban, Afghan Taliban itself, and its partner Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan. Now, as this violence began to escalate, Islamabad or Rawalpindi, depending on who you think is in charge in Pakistan, but Pakistan remained quite indifferent to the threat because the escalation was small. And there was this conviction that once the Taliban comes into power, all we have to do is tell them to hand over the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan, and everything will be all right. Now, what we are seeing instead is a tremendous consolidation of the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan, not only an escalation of operations, but from August 2020 to the present, Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan has been either reunifying and absorbing other groupings, many of its own splinter factions, 21 local militant groups, including number of Pakistan groupings, a number of breakaways of the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan itself, and even the elements of the Al-Qaeda in the Indian subcontinent have merged with the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan. So now we have, instead of this fragmented set of movements, a single, fairly coordinated, centrally commanded grouping, which, according to Pakistani estimates, has a armed strength of more than 7,000 to 10,000 personnel. So, and this is not a conventional force. This is a terrorist force. And we have seen through our own history that a few hundred or 1,000 or two terrorists, well organized, motivated, can do tremendous harm to a target country. Then we see, of course, the fall of Kabul to the Taliban, a very rapid consolidation across the Afghan landmass. Everyone is, including the limited resistance forces in the north, are first of all dispossessed, though they have now started gathering force again. The resistance forces are now beginning to expand some of their capacities and capabilities in the northern areas of Afghanistan. That has resulted in some escalation in violence. The Islamic State has become extremely active in Afghanistan. So these are pressures, but the military hold of the Taliban over Afghanistan is very, very significant. Now, after the fall of Kabul, you see the Taliban emerging, I would suggest, pretending to emerge as a facilitator of peace talks between the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan and Islamabad. So you suddenly had Sirajuddin Haqqani comes in and he brokers a ceasefire in October 2021 for 20 days. But it very rapidly sort of collapses. However, in 2022, in May, again, this time the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan says that we'll have a ceasefire. That is extended and then extended again and again. And it carries on in name right up to November 28th, 2022, 7 months of a notional ceasefire. But both groups, the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan and the Pakistan Army and the Pakistani covert services, carry on systematic operations against each other throughout this phase. So while there is some deceleration in violence, there is very continuous and targeted violence, particularly against the leadership of the Taliban, including the leadership in Afghanistan, where you have several strikes which are against top leaders, which are attributed to the Pakistani intelligence agencies. This is used as the grounds for a breakdown of the peace talks, and the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan says, we don't want to talk to you anymore, and it calls upon its cadres to launch operations against Pakistani security forces everywhere in Pakistan. So theoretically and abruptly, the violence has gone out of just not the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, North Balochistan, and now is a threat across Pakistan. Now you talk about the other critical friction point over here. That's the Durand line. Please understand that no government in Afghanistan has ever accepted the legitimacy of the Durand line. This includes a almost completely dependent regime of the Taliban in the last time around.
Goodness gracious.
This is very important. That regime was far more dependent on Pakistan than the current regime is. But it never conceded the Durand line as the permanent border. And now we are seeing that this border is being constantly contested by the Taliban in Afghanistan. They have said clearly that this is an illegal line which has divided a nation, because they see the Pashtun as a nation, Pashtun or Pashtun as you may call it, as a nation. And repeated at the highest levels, there have been several assertions to this effect. Not only several assertions, there has been armed conflict between the Taliban forces and the army. There has been a air attack by the Pakistan Air Force into Afghan territory, killing, I think, roughly 47 civilians in this case. There have been a multiplicity of other attacks. Pakistan has fenced off a large proportion of the border, which fencing is being contested by the Taliban. And they have mined large areas all along the Durand line, to which, of course, Afghanistan has protested, demanded that maps of the mines be handed over to them. This is a friction that is not going to end. There are other groups in Afghanistan also. The Hizb ut-Tahrir Afghanistan, for instance, has said that the Durand line must be completely removed. And it has added, moreover, that diplomatic conferences and meetings will not solve this issue. What does that mean? That means this has to be settled by armed violence. So you have had many frictional incidents all along the Durand line. Major clashes have occurred. They have exchanged artillery and mortar fire between Taliban forces and Pakistan forces. Many Pakistan and Taliban security personnel have lost their lives, and many civilians have also lost their lives. So we are talking about a situation where, for instance, their Deputy Foreign Minister Abbas Tanikzai, he said, he sort of warned Pakistan that if we rise against the Pakistani interference, no one will be able to stop us. And we must understand how seriously this is to be taken. Understand that these are people who have defeated a superpower. And they point it out. They say, after this air attack, the spokesperson for the Taliban had said, we have defeated a power which had far greater air superiority than Pakistan has.
Goodness gracious.
You must understand that. They have a completely different pattern of operation. So simply saying Pakistan has so many soldiers, so many planes, so many tanks, none of this worked. They defeated a coalition of the most powerful armies in the world. And this is a conviction in their heart that we can do this, and we can do it very easily with Pakistan. So this will continue. This is not something that is going to in any way be diluted over time. If anything, it is going to escalate. We also are aware that they have created a whole new, what they call a special istishadi force. Istishadi is martyrdom force, to operate in, this is the Tehrik-i-Taliban. Now, I've shifted back to the Tehrik-i-Taliban. Under the patronage of the Taliban, the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan has created this martyrdom force and has declared an autonomous government in the in two zones, what they call the North Zone, Peshawar, Malakand, Mardan, Gilgit-Baltistan, and the South Zone, which is Dera Ismail Khan, Bannu, Kohat. All these areas, they say, these are ours, we are governing them. And we will govern them through the use of terror, and we will govern them through the use of martyrdom forces. So this is something that this constitutes, to my mind, the most serious potential threat. And we must remember that when I talked about more than 11,700 fatalities in 2009, that was again the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan. They had been brought to the table, they had been pushed to the wall, both by negotiations and very, very harsh military operations. But that was a different kind of thing. That war was different because these people had at that time occupied and challenged conventional forces conventionally. This time around, they are going to be fighting an insurgency or a terrorist campaign against a conventional force. So we will see a tremendous amount of difficulty. This difficulty is very naturally going to be influenced by the relative weaknesses of both governments. When we go outside the purely security sphere, everything actually impinges in the end on security. If your economy is collapsing, if your administration is failing, if there is so much political fission and friction within the country that governments cannot function, where government after government in the provinces is, simply walking out. Two PTI governments in the two most important provinces, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Punjab. The PTI government simply say, we will go to the elections again. And the Supreme Court has now forced the center, the federal government, to declare elections soon. So all these factors are going to be coming in together. These factors do not have the same quantum of force in Afghanistan for the reasons that I gave when I started off talking about Afghanistan. That is not a conventional government. It is a government that does not give a very high priority to the welfare of its people, is not responsive to street demonstrations or protests or power. Whereas the Pakistani government has repeatedly collapsed before street pressure, again and again in different contexts. So Pakistani political fissures are going to be far more influential in defining or undermining Pakistan's capacity to respond as compared to the Afghan quasi-state or regime that has been established. Now, I think the most critical factor of the present situation is economic. Of course, again, you will say, but Afghanistan is bankrupt. Again, it doesn't matter quite as much as it matters that Pakistan is approaching bankruptcy. It's like someone who has nothing to lose. and someone who still has something, a great deal to lose. And the economic crisis in Pakistan is unprecedented. They haven't had anything comparable for 50, 60 years. You have the Pakistan rupee down to 274 rupees to $1. Inflation last year was 31.5%. Food inflation was 45%. Transport prices increased by almost 51%. Foreign exchange reserves down to 3.2 billion with the central bank. This is enough to finance imports for a few days. I mean, or maybe 2 or 3 weeks. This has never been the case in Pakistan. They've never fallen quite so low before in terms of foreign exchange. And their interest rates have gone up to 17%. This is the highest in almost a quarter of a century. Their exports are shrinking. Exports to all the countries with which they have their principal trade, which is within the region, have gone down by almost 12%. So Pakistan is now in an economic crisis. It is in a political crisis, and it is getting sucked into a very serious security crisis, in which the methods that they used against the preceding regime in Afghanistan very effectively to defeat the coalition and the Kabul regime, the Western coalition and the Kabul regime, are now potentially going to be turned against themselves. And we have seen the efficacy of those methods. We have seen that they have already defeated one superpower, the Soviet Union, in '89. And now they have defeated this other coalition led by the sole superpower of the world at that juncture. So if this friction at this juncture turns against Pakistan, turns into a sustained campaign against Pakistan, in the current circumstances where Pakistan is internally so weak, I feel that there is the possibility of an existential challenge to at least the integrity of the country. Thank you, and I would like to hand it over to the discussants.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sani. I have a question to ask. Initially, the TTP were basically Pashtuns, which were operating on the eastern border of Pakistan, eastern side of the border. Now, if they're going deep into Pakistan, as you had mentioned, are they tying up with other insurgent groups within the Pakistan, or they have the domain or the capability of going deep into Pakistan?
They have always had a capability. You see, in the last cycle also, first of all, as I said before, there has been a tremendous, a number of other groups have actually joined the TTP. So you have had this kind of consolidation of terrorist enterprises. Moreover, they have a number of terrorist groups that were earlier thought of as Sarkari groups, you know, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, the Lashkar-e-Taiba. Now, Jaish and Lashkar have actually been fighting in Afghanistan alongside the Taliban, and now see themselves as brother groups to the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan and to the Afghan Taliban. So there is a presumably evolving sharing of networks. Then, even in the last cycle of escalating violence after the Lal Masjid and when the Tehrik-i-Taliban came into existence in 2008, the escalation in 2009-10, there were operations in the Punjab. There were operations even far down as in Karachi.
Yes, that's right.
You remember that. In Karachi, they had also formed sort of alliances of opportunity with the gangs that were dominating Karachi at that juncture. So will this all be repeated? We cannot predict. But do they have the capacity to extend? The other thing very crucially is, what is the ideological position of the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan? It is Islamist fundamentalism. And if it is Islamist fundamental, fundamentalism, it will have an eventual appeal across Pakistan as long as we see a continuous loss of credibility or faith in the state. So there is very, very significant potential for this group. Okay, one more very, very crucial thing, a very surprising thing, is that the Pakistan government, of course, asserts that some of the operations in South Balochistan, which is the Baloch rebel area,
Correct.
have been jointly executed by the Baloch rebel groups and the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan. Now, this cannot be confirmed, but the important thing is that the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan has in fact made statements supportive of these operations. So this is a very, very extraordinary factor that has emerged over here. So even if the Baloch start coordinating, they may not have a long-term interest in shared objectives, but they start coordinating. Other Islamist groupings see that there is they're bound by their interpretation of extremist Islam.
Yeah.
So there is a potential of all these currently dormant groupings, because most of these groupings had become more or less ineffective, apart from the Baloch insurgency. Karachi had settled down. There was very little, terrorism manifesting in Punjab. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa did continue to see occasional incidents. But now all these broken and defeated groupings will see a emerging success and are likely to cleave to it. And this emerging success also has safe havens across the border, across what we could now progressively see as a hostile border, not across a friendly border. Because the Taliban, having been reminded repeatedly that they should take action against Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan on their soil, have simply turned around and said, there is no Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan in Afghanistan, which is precisely what Pakistan kept saying all the time about the Taliban under the earlier dispensations.
Another question I have. When Taliban came into power in Afghanistan, the ISI had a major role to play in placing their own people in it, like Siraj Haqqani, who was the interior minister. And you have another group, the leader, Akhundzada. You mean to say that Haqqani has not been able to stop this thing at the behest of Pakistan?
You see, there are two things to understand over here. First of all, there is tremendous friction and rivalry between the Akhundzada group and the Haqqani group. And in fact, there is this whole talk of the Kandahar group and the Kabul group, which is not just Haqqani. Kabul group is not just Haqqani, but all the Doha negotiators, what are called the moderates.
Yeah.
So these are people who are eager to do business with the rest of the world. Whereas the Kandahar group, headed by Akhundzada, are the arch conservatives who say, to hell with the world. The only law is the law of the faith. So this conflict is there. But please understand, however much Sirajuddin Haqqani may be indebted to Pakistan, he cannot and will not say that I accept the Durand line.
Yeah.
So whatever else he may push. Number two, please understand, if the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan is flourishing in Afghanistan, it is an association, the principal group to which it has long been affiliated is the Haqqani faction within the Taliban.
Absolutely.
So these are all, too clever by half is what Pakistan has been. So they thought that they could forever manipulate. You can never, after someone or a grouping has tasted blood, it will never be your faithful and subservient.
Dr. Ayasani,
Sir.
You see, the situation depicted by you obviously shows that the Afghan terrorists are Taliban, I would say Taliban, who were little less desperate earlier have become much more desperate. And they have started going against Pakistan itself. With the result that terrorism, in a way, has increased in Pakistan. The Pakistan economy, as you know, is absolutely at 0 point. The Pakistan political system is also in crisis. Imran Khan is going about with lot of rallies and all and talking against the present government. Imran Khan still holds two provinces. Imran Khan party holds two provinces of Pakistan under it. With all this crisis, when the Afghans are getting into a desperate shape and trying to create problem with Pakistan, will not Pakistan like to divert on the basis of fundamentalism? I will say on the basis of religious fundamentalism, or on the appeal of mullahs, as I will call it. All these fundamentalism will be diverted gradually towards India. What impact can it have? I mean, is a situation of crisis for Pakistan, all right. But is it not a situation of worry for India also?
I'll break that into two sections, sir. One is that the Afghan Taliban is doing what it's doing out of desperation. I disagree there. In fact, it is doing all that it is doing out of a tremendous and unexpected consolidation.
Consolidation, not desperation.
Not desperation. It is now far more confident of itself. It has got the entire Afghan landmass. Yes, there is some little operations that kill 20 people here and 30 people over there, which those numbers don't matter to these people. These are people who have for decades sustained an relentless flow of suicide squads. So there is no desperation in Afghanistan. The desperation is in our minds because we think that they think like us. How can you have an entire population with 90% of the population is today food deficient? Even the worst government in our part of the world, even the worst government in Pakistan, could not be indifferent to a factor like this. The Afghanistan government, Taliban government would like to address these issues, but it is not an existential issue for them. So don't attribute their actions to desperation. In fact, their actions are now evolving out of consolidation and relative strength, relative to what they expected. They thought that they would be fighting for God knows how long within the country. But here there is only a small amount of fighting going on in a few theaters. So none of that is, the Afghan government is not under that kind of pressure. Now comes the second thing. If the TTP increases its operations in Pakistan, would Pakistan not like to divert forces, Islamist extremist forces, to India?
Yes, sir.
As it has always sought to do in the past. Now, that is not a choice that is really available to Pakistan at the same level as in the past. Again, for a multiple set of reasons. First of all, the principal threat comes from Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan. And Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan's objective is Pakistan. There is nothing that Pakistan can do to say that, why don't you send your forces against the Kafirs in India?
That's right.
Nothing is going to convince them. The TTP has declared the Pakistan state murtad, apostates. The kafir can still be tolerated under circumstances. The murtad cannot be tolerated. His only punishment is death. If you embrace and betray Islam in their imagination, the only option is death. So the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan cannot be turned towards India. Now, of course, when the Taliban took over Kabul, I remember there was so much of commentary in India that now, there will be a wave of terrorism because all these people will be released from Pakistan.
Yeah. There are a lot of...
And I had written right then that none of this is going to happen. Look, the Taliban, even if it wants to send people to India, do you think that it has greater capacities than the inter-services intelligence? The inter-services intelligence has fully supported this movement of Islamist terrorism in India since the very beginning. And Pakistan is a richer, better endowed, more populous state, far more people doing nothing who could have been sent into India. So I do not believe there is going to be any kind of dramatic escalation in terrorism directed towards India as a result of the Pakistan-Afghanistan dynamic.
Oh,
I don't think that is going to happen. Our threat remains Pakistan and the inter-services intelligence. However, that threat has also shrunk because of Pakistan's deterioration of capacities, its economic crisis, its loss of support from America, even its loss of support from Pakistan, from China. You know, this everybody talks about this all-weather friendship. But if you see the trajectory over the past few years, last 2 years in particular, you see China finding it more and more difficult to support Pakistan. That doesn't mean it's going to pull out. Pakistan is extremely important for China at a strategic level. So it will continue to support them, Pakistan. But the support is not quite as enthusiastic as it was, say, 2 years or 3 years ago. So from every side, they're coming under pressure. Economically, in domestic dissent and friction, loss of support from the entire West, global focus on Pakistan, because every time something, it tries to do something in terms of support of terrorism, any major or explicit act of terrorism against India, the global
influence
lens comes onto it.
Okay. Anyone else want to ask a question to Dr. Sani?
Dr. Suri, Ms. Suri. Suri sahab, unmute kariye.
Sir, very informative and detailed lecture given by Mr. Sani. And he has clarified most of the issues. What is happening in Afghanistan, what is the link between Tehrik-i Pakistan and Afghanistan. And I don't have any question to ask him. He has completely explained right from the beginning to the end what has happened after Afghanistan came, the Taliban came to power in Afghanistan, and what happened at Durand Line and all these things. He has fully explained it. I am grateful to him. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I have one question, Dr. Sani. You know, this chap, Al-Zawahiri, he was sort of a guest in Afghanistan.
Yes.
And he was done away with the drone attack. The drone could not have flown for a very long ride. So apparently there's some talk to say that the Pakistanis had given the air corridor for the drone to go. Would that be one of the rift points between Pakistan and Afghanistan?
Absolutely, explicitly. In fact, the Taliban has made statements saying that Pakistan has been paid millions of dollars by America.
300 million.
Sorry?
Yeah.
But then after the
allow
exit,
these air attacks. Sir, please.
after the exit of US military from Afghanistan,
Ji.
and now Pakistan is no longer a frontline state for US. And therefore, the dependence which Pakistan had from time to time, or the aid which Pakistan had from time to time from US, is naturally getting absolutely nil or diminished. And therefore, with no assistance coming, either from the International Monetary Fund or from any other place, except for a few dollars here, a few billion dollars for the food, for the flood relief. The rest of it, they have not got any. In case Pakistan government or Pakistan collapses, and because they don't recognize the Durand Line as far as, so in case Pakistan government collapses under its own sins or under its own pressure, and it comes ultimately dominant influence, or it comes under Afghanistan, when they say, all right, irrespective of the fact they say they are friends, And Imran Khan has one commented that Afghans have broken the shackles of slavery, and this is what no shackles of slavery
What
have
they
been
have forgotten
broken.
is that the Pashtuns are over here also in shackles of slavery. They're not
So
trying to
my
break them.
point is that how will our hackers, Indian hackers will, the covert and overt operations, will India have to be very careful with this? What do you think about that? Because maybe it's a coward, maybe it's overt. I am not concerned because Pakistan army is no match. There's no question with the Indian army. But still, India has to be careful and undertake certain operations, which maybe you may call covert or overt operation, where they have to contain. And you are also referred yourself that there are also certain Talibans with Al-Qaeda group also. And so this is situation is very dangerous by the side of our border, close to India. So don't you say that there has to be some thinking in this process? Or maybe there is thinking already.
Well, I'm sure the security services and the intelligence establishment will be looking at all these questions. In fact, as I said earlier, that others have been far more, shall we say, agitated by the developments in Pakistan and Afghanistan than I have been. They feel that far more threat is, going to be directed against India than I think. Nevertheless, whatever, just because there is a difference between your assessment and my assessment does not mean that I think that, nothing is going to happen and everything is fine in India. Look at what they are doing in Punjab.
Yeah.
Look at the fact that, sir, for more than 30 years, they have kept these Khalistani terrorist leadership as guests of the state.
Yes, again emerging,
And
maybe
others, any new people who want to cross the border and become Khalistani terrorists or drug dealers are welcomed and are given opportunities there.
Yes.
So it is not as if the Pakistani state has completely abandoned its idea or its ambition or its war of 1,000 cuts. Its capacities to sustain such a war, particularly its capacity to sustain such a war on two fronts now, is becoming more and more circumscribed. Do we need covert operations or other operations? I don't understand overt operations in these circumstances. I do understand overt policies and strategies. Economic strategies can be adopted.
That's right.
In fact, when we talk about contemporary warfare, if you look at the literature across the world, people are no longer talking about conventional confrontations between major states. That hasn't gone away. We can see Ukraine happening even today. But by and large, the imagination of the war of the future is non-contact warfare. And within the instrumentalities of this warfare are a whole range of what are thought to be non-lethal weapons. The economy is one of the first things. Information warfare is another. The manipulation of domestic politics in the target state.
I have one more point, sir. You see, with this insurgency coming in a very big way in Pakistan, the security forces, be it the police force or the armed forces, they get involved in it. China has invested a lot of money in this CPIC and Gwadar. They're building dams, they're making industries. Would a situation ever come where, to protect their own infrastructure, the Chinese send in their own troops?
Yeah.
China has been determined to... Sir, please, I interrupted you. Would you complete that?
You got my point, sir?
Yes, I got your point. Now, China has been trying to say that we are going to get our own forces to protect our projects for many years. Pakistan has been trying to reassure them constantly that we will provide. Now, they have raised a special force to protect the economic assets developed by China.
Yep.
But this is unlikely to satisfy China over a protracted period of time. Will China send in its troops? Now, we have to find out what is going to be the level of Chinese engagement over time. Please understand that the Chinese commitment to CPEC projects went up from 42 billion to 62 billion to 65 billion.
Correct.
And was supposed to be completed. All these were supposed to be completed by 2030. We are in 2023 now. Only 25 billion has been spent.
That's right.
And if you see the past 3 years, apart from no new projects have been started.
And they're going through Balochistan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because and the Chinese seem to be extremely sort of sensitive to the loss of even a single Chinese life. They are not willing to pay that kind of price in blood. So if this if the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan violence grows sufficiently to threaten these projects will be put on hold. As I said before, China is not going to abandon its ambitions in Pakistan.
No, we're not.
You can see the map and you can see that line that they are trying to draw from Kashgar to the seaboard. You can see the kind of string of pearls that they are trying to bring all around the ports of Karachi and Gwadar. So they have, Pakistan is integral to their worldview. But how much will they invest in a shaky Pakistan? They have made it very clear. You have got to get your governance in order. You've got to get your economy in order. Even the very small proportion, they have, of course, on whatever terms they may be, they have given most of their aid to Pakistan as loans. But why are the projects collapsing today? Because the very small component of investment that Pakistan was to generate is not coming.
That's right.
Pakistan today is not even being able to meet its power bills, electricity bills to the companies, Chinese companies, which are generating electricity in the new CPEC projects. Whatever, I mean, some people say the pricing was completely irrational. But whatever it be, it was the pricing they accepted and are now no longer being able to pay. So from a commercial perspective, China will tend to dilute or translate its projects from Pakistan-owned projects progressively to Chinese-controlled regions.
Yep.
So we are seeing a process of potential colonization by China.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And I think it's a very illuminating interactive session that we've had with you, sir. I'll request the President to call it today, sir.
It is always, I mean, I have been interacting with Dr. Sani from time to time earlier also. But after he comes on our webinar, he adds a tremendous value to all our webinar whenever he's joined. And there's no doubt about his erudition and scholarship on the subject of terrorism in Southeast Asia. And in fact, he is an authority in a way. We are very grateful to him for always accepting our invitation as and when we requested him. He has gone into details about the fatalities which have occurred in the recent wars, how the Taliban terrorists are trying to dominate over the Pakistan forces, how Pakistan is crumbling in a way, yet there are some hopes that it may revive its economy through some means, how political crisis is there, and also on certain questions of the China's reaction to it, and to some question as to what will be the impact on India, all have been explained in very great detail and very illuminating and informative manner. And he has given excellent data. There's every year, and I don't know how much he remembers by heart all this data. And I only want to say thank you very much, Dr. Sani. It was really, really a treat, always a treat to listen to you. As the Afghanistan government is unwilling in a way, or is incapable of stopping the terrorist inroads across the border of Pakistan as at present, and an overwhelming feeling has developed in Pakistan that Taliban have betrayed their trust, so-called, which they had, that after the it's a new government. The Taliban have full trust with Taliban and we could do anything. The Taliban seem to have betrayed their trust. They have realized it. I also had the anxiety to know how we can be, how India will be impacted. He has explained at length. All these things have been explained at length. I think it needs much more, a few more sessions if we go into. And I think the next would be probably a request from panel discussions on the subject, which will bring on the YouTube. With these words, I thank you once again for having accepted my invitation and having given this very, very illuminating deliberations to the delegates present here.
Thank you for having me, sir.
And our next session, please display the banner. Next session. Panel discussion, growing women harassment, need of effective policies in India. For effective policies in India, we are having this panel discussions with Mrs. MS Brinda Adige, who is a woman activist, founder and director of Global Concerns in India, and Dr. Vikram Singh, Chancellor, Noida International University. In March, we'll give you all the details, and all the delegates are requested to join us in this session. It is due on what date? Please show the date. Natasha, please show the date, 13th March.
Yes, sir.
Okay, here's the second week of March. We'll come back to you with all the details and write to you. Please keep joining us and encouraging us. Thank you very much from NISWA. Thank you all the delegates. Thank you, Dr. Sani. Thank you, moderator. Thank you everyone else who's present there. Thank you. Indeed, I'm indebted to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. It's a wonderful talk we've had from you, and I think we'll have much more in times to come.
Much more.
Thank you. Thank
We
you.
need to have a full-fledged panel discussion. Probably that will be much more effective because the time was very limited and we couldn't go into details of many other things, ramifications of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, sir.